Hey guys, it's Selwen here. Today let's talk about all the new armor sets in the new contents. Like it was with Uldir, there are no class-based sets, sadly, but only one dedicated for each armor type. So in total we have the raid set for each difficulty and its respective recolors, plus one new PvP/Warfront set for the Horde based on the Forsaken, and another for the Alliance based on the Night Elves, since it's themed around the new battle for Darkshore Warfront. The way I will show the armor is that I will talk about it a bit in a selected race of my choosing, then have these visual only phases, showcasing them in other races which you can skip with the time prompt. That said, let's get to the new race set from the Siege of the Tsar Allure. Starting off big, let's talk about the plate armor. Now, I'm not sure what to say about this armor set because at first I'm like, holy shit, it's freaking bone armor from Skyrim. I mean, it literally is. Granted, all the sets from the raid are quite boned, since they are based around Bonsandi and all that sort of death theme. So a trend you will see with all the sets is that they look very decay or warlock in nature. However, this plate one is just, well, bone. One thing I don't like about it, or well, two things, is the shoulder on the heroic or normal version, because they just way too small in comparison to the rest. It's just way too disproportionate. At least on the human, on say an orc, this isn't too much of an issue. And the same follows for the waist area, way too thick in comparison to the rest, especially when looking from behind. Now, when you take a look at the mythic version, which is how it's really intended to look, and it gets even more crazy. The shoulder bit doesn't become an issue anymore because you have a freaking dire horn skull on it, which is just ridiculous on itself and cool and weird at the same time, and honestly I cannot say that I love it or hate it. The rest of the armor is mostly the same, just a bit more detailed, and with this blue glow, which like I said is a trend across all armors due to the good old Bonsandi. And I'll show you what they look like on the other races like I said, but let's take a look at the other sets first. The male sets usually for me are always the runt of the litter, and this one again is the same. It's just not very impressive looking. In-game is just showing the robe version, but on Wowhead is showing without a robe, so I assume there is both versions. Sadly, I couldn't get the non-robe version to work in game, so I have to make do with what I have. I'll leave the picture there so you can see it anyway. But once again, very bony looking, although instead of being influenced on the dire horns, you have these Krog skulls all over, which is cool, but there's something about it that just doesn't fit right. I'm not sure if it's the chest or the legs, the feet, something about it. Maybe on a more savage looking race can look a little bit better, like the troll or an orc. As for the mythic set, quite similar, just has that blue glow effect once again, and more bulky in general. Mostly more bone features like scattered across it. One thing I have to give it for the set, or well, all of them in general, all of the sets, is that the detail is really good. The textures and the volume of it, the way that certain details and features stick out of the armor is indeed quite impressive, which is more than we can say in comparison to some of the Uldir sets. Onto the leather set. Now this has to be one of my favorites, once again filled with bone, although this time is forming almost like this skeleton across the armor and your character's body, but once again with the dino theme, with a head of a raptor with some feathers attached to it. Now this is kinda cool, but the mythic set is where you can see it in its full glory. Once again, you are greeted with that blue glow effects around the shoulders and the eye sockets on that raptor helm, which is really cool. Rest of the armor stays mostly the same, just cooler in general due to more detail, the new color pattern, and of course the glow effect. Just one last detail is that if you look at the armor sideways, it looks like something else entirely, and I actually love that. Now since the armor is so bone looking, if you play as an undead, it become extra boned. Yeah, I'll show you that later. And finally we get the cloth set, which is extremely DK looking, or a warlock looking rather. I mean, this could pass as a warlock set easily, so if you win one, you win luck. Now, much like the others, lots of bone, lots of skulls. The robe is also quite detailed, which is a rare feature on robes, so props for that. Now the mythic set is even more impressive because everything is just doubled. You get the blue glow again, and you get more skulls, more bones, bones. Even your head is covered with a hood made of bones. I mean, it's really cool. As a mage, I don't think it will fit all that well, but as a lock or even as a shadow priest, this will be a beautiful set to acquire. So yeah, the sets in general, personally, are pretty cool looking, with the exception of the male one, but of course the variety is really short. They mostly look the same, all bone looking, all bluish, which is the downside of having raid tier sets, since they have this central theme. Along with that, the fact that they won't look good on every class. I mean, that cloth mythic set on a holy priest, a bit weird, right? But yeah, do let me know what you all think about it. And before we move on to the Warfront sets or PvP sets, this is how they look on other relevant races. Feel free to skip. Okay, so let's start with the Horde Forsaken PvP set. So this armor is, of course, going to be very much based around the Forsaken, very dark looking, but I can also see a lot of human-like influences in its design, which most undead used to be human at some point, so it does make sense, which is a nice little detail. So let's take a look. So the plate set. I think, and in general, all of this armor, even the raid ones, are quite divisive. And here, once again, I think you will either love it or hate the overall style. Personally, I like it. It screams Forsaken. I love the metal plating around it, the chains, really fantastic detail. The belt does deserve some extra praise, as you get these little chains that even have physics integrated, so they kind of move around. However, this is the mythic or elite set. The normal variant that you will be able to get from the Warfronts and other similar content of that same level isn't as impressive, but still quite cool. The downside will be, outside of undead characters, won't be that fitting, but hey. On to the male set. We actually get something cool for male this time. I actually really like this. Once again, this is the Mythic / Elite set, but it really looks like this dark hunter of sorts. Not so great looking for shamans though. It's full-on chainmail, which is quite rare these days. The shoulders are also great with the skulls and the spikes. The chest has this metal plating that kinda comes off it a little bit, which is something they're doing quite frequently these days on chests, adding a lot more detail to it, but once again a bit off outside of undead characters, or if you play something like a restoration shaman, it's gonna look a little bit weird. And also, it clips like ass with dabbers, hairstyles and even beards, which sucks a lot. But again, as an undead, that isn't too much of an issue. Normal version, again, not as impressive. It's quite a big downgrade, but once again, quite unique looking, just overall less. Onto the leather set, and yeah, I don't think it's that amazing. It's passable. I like the shoulders, even though on themselves are pretty cool to look at. Do look a bit off since they are so platy. The waist is also full of little pockets, which is a really nice detail, but yeah, I appreciate what they're going for, but doesn't touch me in the right places. I do give it props to the way the leather looks, though. It's a really nice texture and detail as well on it. The normal version is a bit more leathery. The head slot does look really cool. I actually prefer this to the Mythic version or Elite version, which is a full-on hood with the metal spikes on it. I don't really like that, but this one that is just kind of covers your mouth is really cool. And finally, the cloth set. The Mythic version is indeed pretty great, let's put it like that. Very Plague Doctor influenced, which adds this really creepy vibe. We had some of that in the past with the Ulduar Warlock set, but this one looks obviously far more detailed. Once again, really cool for locks or shadow priests. Also has this actual plague or blight flasks around it, which is a really nice touch. That said, the normal version is just alright. It could pass as a leveling set, to be honest. So in general, I think the sets do look very unique. There's really nothing like them, so on that is really creative, really great, quite vampire-ish influences as well, especially with the leather and all of that, but it does have flaws as pointed above. And here's how they look on the other races. Spoiler alert is a bit off. let's take a look at the Alliance Night Elf version, starting with the plate mythic version, and it's okay. The Elune moons across the armor is really cool on the shoulders, on the waist. I also like how platey it looks. I guess a good example is on the boots. They are quite thick, so they really look like plate, but besides that, it's just really simple. Very Night Elf for sure, so if you're going for that style of Tmog, it's great, but outside of that, it feels quite simple. The normal version is less impressive, obviously, very Alliance themed due to the colors mixed in with the Night Elf look, but again, not a lot going for it. On to the male one, and once again, not very impressive looking. The colors do look off, not really matching, and just the rest of the armor just doesn't do it for me. The boots and gloves are really cool, I'll give it that. The shoulders as well with the feathers, but besides that, just passable. In the normal version, it's even less impressive. Again, could pass as leveling armor. As for the leather set, I feel it is the better one. Really cool for Night Elf rogues, especially, or hell, even druids. The helm covering the face is really nice, and the rest of the armor just screams Night Elf roguish to me. The normal set, though, is not that impressive looking again. And finally, the cloth set, and it's okay, really nice for priests, right? Very Elune, priestess themes, and on that is cool, but taking that aside, it's alright. It has some pretty nice detail and texture to it, and the same follows for all of these armor sets, I mean, no question. The helm is quite neat as well, fitting with that overall theme, but outside of that niche, it's just alright. The normal version, like the Horde variant, could once again pass as leveling armor. Not much to say about it. So in general, they look quite okay. They are very Night Elf, yes, but also have a lot of old Alliance set influences like the vanilla ones, at least that's what I got. Maybe it's just because I don't main Alliance and I'm not really connected with that style of armor, it's possibly making me dislike it more or not appreciate it as much. So do let me know what you all think about it down below. Now, besides the main sets, there's yet another piece of Tmog in the raid, which is a crown. Yes, a jeweled crown. Now, in game it looks really small and it's really quite funny, but on live it will for sure look bigger, and this on a goblin will look really awesome. I just think this is a really cool addition, and you can make some really fun and random Tmog around it. And yes, there is a version for every armor type with just different colors. This drops off the treasure boss in the Siege of the Tsar lore. And of course we get the heritage armor sets, the one for dwarves and the one for blood elves. I won't go too much into detail on this because I have 2 dedicated videos about it, so no need to make this video longer than it needs to be. So if you want a more in-depth look, do check them out. But yeah, that covers all the armors coming in 8.1. Do let me know what you all think about them and post what is your favorites down below. And as always, thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe to get more videos like this, and check out my Patreon if you wish to support the channel. Have a fantastic day everyone, and I'll see you all next time. See ya.